If all this was apparently triggered by the shooting of Mark Duggan on Thursday evening, it's perhaps surprising that only 3 people have left flowers at the place where he died. IPCC investigators arrived on the scene at 9 p.m, almost 3 hours after the shooting. But 5 days into their inquiry, the information vacuum means that conspiracy theories are growing about how Mark Duggan died. The IPCC are appealing for witnesses, but suggestions that a bullet which was lodged in a police radio was one of their own and had not been fired from another weapon has raised more awkward questions. But people who live nearby told me that a police surveillance vehicle had been filming the road for several days before the shooting. They claim to have seen armed plainclothes police hiding in bushes nearby, and say the taxi in which Mark Duggan was a passenger was taken away from the scene before being brought back later for more tests. And while the rumour mill continues to churn out theories, the local MP wants the facts.
Clearly, when a man dies in that manner on a London street, there are big questions, and we see speculation in the media today. I know no more, but there are some serious answers about what the nature of the operation was in Tottenham, because it was not an operation led by Tottenham Police, it was led by Operation Trident centrally.
It may be the middle of the week before the centre of Tottenham is reopened to the public. Community leaders here think it's important that the Metropolitan Police, or the IPCC, open up by then too.
The tests we commissioned from the Forensic Science Service have so far confirmed that the bullet lodged in the MPS radio is a jacketed round. This is a police-issue bullet, and whilst it is still subject to DNA analysis, it is consistent with having been fired from an MPS Heckler & Koch MP5. The firearm found at the scene was a converted BBM Bruni self-loading pistol. This is not a replica. At this stage, there is no evidence that the handgun found at the scene was fired during the incident. 2 shots were fired by one CO19 firearms officer. A post-mortem examination concluded that Mr. Duggan was killed by a single gunshot wound to the chest. I know that this is an incredibly difficult time for Mark Duggan's family, who have made it abundantly clear that they in no way condone the violence that we have all seen on the streets of London and elsewhere over the past 3 nights. I am committed to ensuring they are provided with answers from the IPCC about the investigation into Mark's death as soon as we have them.
I know Mark. Mark is not going to do that. 100%. 100%. Mark is the kind of person, if he did have a gun, which I don't know, if he did, Mark would run. My children don't know. Mark's children don't know that he's gone. We can't tell them yet because they're going to be asking questions. I don't have the answers to it. But it's gone way past. It's not connected to this anymore. I don't think. It's got nothing to do with the march. This is out of control. It's out of control. Innocent people are getting hurt. Children have got no homes. It's just not needed at all.
Plus, I'm now joined by Darcus Howe, who is a writer and broadcaster, and we can speak to him now. And Marcus Dow is in Croydon. Marcus Dow, are you shocked by what you've seen there last night?
No, not at all. I have been living in London for 50 years. There are so many different moods and moments. But what I was certain about, listening to my grandson and my son, is that something very, very serious was going to take place in this country. Our political leaders had no idea. The police had no idea. But if you looked at young blacks and young whites with a discerning eye and a careful hearing, they have been telling us, and we would not listen, that what is happening in this country to them.
Mr. Howe, if I can just stop you, Mr. Howe, for a moment. You say you're not shocked. Does this mean that you condone what happened in your community last night?
I condone, of course not. What I'm going to condone it for? What I'm concerned about more than anything else, there is a young man called Mark Duggan. He has parents, he has brothers, he has sisters, and few yards away from where he lives, a police officer blew his head off.
Well, Mr. Howe, we have to...
Let me finish.
Mr. Howe, we have to wait for the official inquiry before we can say things like that. We don't know what happened to Mr. Duggan. We are going to wait for the police report on it. If I can take you on a little bit, you were talking about your grandson, you were talking about young people. You were talking about your grandson, you were talking...
They have been stopping and searching young blacks for no reason at all. I have a grandson, he's an angel, and he began to think he was coming of age when the police slapped him up against the wall and searched him, and he thought he had now had a gold star. I asked him the other day, apropos of a sense that something was going seriously wrong in this country. I said, how many times have the police searched you? He said, Papa, I can't count. There's so many times.
Mr. Howe, that may well have happened, and if you say it did, I am not to gainsay you, but that is not an excuse to go out rioting and cause the sort of damage that we have been seeing over the last few days.
Where were you in 1981 in Brixton?
Mr. Howe,
I don't call it rioting, I call it an insurrection of the masses of the people. It is happening in Syria, it is happening in Clapham, it's happening in Liverpool, it's happening in Port of Spain, Trinidad, and that is the nature of the historical moment.
Mr. Howe, Mr. Howe, if I can just ask you, you are not a stranger to riots yourself, I understand, are you? You have taken part in them yourself.
I have never taken part in a single riot. I've been on demonstrations that ended up in a conflict, and have some respect for an old West Indian Negro and stop accusing me of being a rioter. Because you won't tickle me to get abusive. You just sound idiotic. Have some respect.
Darcus Howe,
grandchildren.
Thank you very much for joining us from Croydon. Darcus Howe, their writer and broadcaster.
Okay, well, there's been a huge knock-on to lots of aspects of life in the capital, including sport.
There will be some 16,000 officers tonight. All leave within the Metropolitan Police has been cancelled. There will be aid coming from police forces up and down the country, and we will do everything necessary to strengthen and assist those police forces that are meeting this disorder. There's already been 450 people arrested. We will make sure that court procedures and processes are speeded up, and people should expect to see many more arrests in the days to come. I am determined, the government is determined, that justice will be done, and these people will see the consequences of their actions. And I have this very clear message to those people who are responsible for this wrongdoing and criminality. You will feel the full force of the law. And if you are old enough to commit these crimes, you are old enough to face the punishments. And to these people, I would say this: you are not only wrecking the lives of others, you're not only wrecking your own communities, you are potentially wrecking your own life too.
Policemen to look after 800 marauding young blacks. When we mash up the Swamp 81, they make the ruler them understand that we not take no more of them oppression. And when we check out the ghetto grapevine, every rebel just a rebel in them story. Them a talk about power and the glory. Them a talk about the burning and the looting. Them a talk about the smashing and the grabbing. Them a tell me about the vanquish and the victory. Them said the Babylon them went too far.